Welcome back into Bear and Balance on draft night. I'm Jeff Berckes, joined by lead draft analyst Jacob Infante for the second rounder of the Chicago Bears in the 2025 draft. Let's do a little math here. Let's kick this off with the trade. The Bears trade with the Buffalo Bills. They trade down from 41 to 56, and in doing so, they improve pick 72 up to pick 62 and pick set at 240, which is a seventh rounder, all the way up to 104, a fourth rounder. I did the math in between the last time we talked, Jacob, and it is an even Steven a swap based on points. And so just from the math perspective, it's a fair deal for both sides. But the Bears are able to improve a couple of the picks up, which allows them to stay in that sweet spot. And the first one we're going to talk about here right now is some beef. The Bears finally go into the trenches with Ozzy Trapilo.
Trapilo.
I was 0 for 2 there. All right.
I should know this.
Yeah, I put the bad pronunciation in your mind. Offensive tackle out of Boston College. So Ryan Poles drafts an offensive lineman from the university that he went to and played offensive line at. What do you know? What do you say about the new offensive lineman for the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, so I think when you're looking at Ozzy Trapilo, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out before the end of the night. But when I see Ozzy, I see someone, I mean, obviously he's 6'8", he's about 315 pounds, massive human being. I know he's someone who's, a 3-year starter at the ACC level. He was a first teamer in 2024, second teamer in 2023, 3 years total of starting experience, having spent time between left tackle and right tackle during his time at Boston College. He's an athlete. I think that's just something that's really impressive for such a big guy is he can move laterally pretty well. He's got good short area quickness as a run blocker. And he can bend a little bit. I think that's something where you see so many tall offensive tackles like that who are 6'7", 6'8", who really struggle with getting low. But I think that Ozzy does a good job of generating that bend in his lower half and working to kind of neutralize the natural leverage disadvantage that he has at the point of attack. That, and you combine his raw power, you combine his massive hands, his solid wingspan. He's a good player. I think that, we'll get into it for sure. He's far from a finished product. But I know, a lot of Bears fans this entire offseason have been pushing for trenches, good investment along the offensive line. I think that this is a solid pick, maybe a little bit earlier than where I would have taken him, but Ozzy's a day 2 pick. And I think that he's not all that out of place here in the late second round. I believe that's where I had him around this range, maybe a little bit later in the day 2 mock draft that I did. I feel like I thought someone was going to be super willing to, bet on the tools with Ozzy, and it just turned out to be the Bears.
Well, just looking at, fellow scout like yourself, Jacob, Dane Brugler, with The Athletic, he has Ozzy rated as the 79th overall player on his board. So, like you say, league a little early, but the 7th tackle prospect. Tackles went real fast in this draft. Obviously, 3 before the Bears pick for the first time, and more to follow. So there's a lot of beef being drafted, this year and up high. Everybody needs more offensive linemen, and so when you're able to take a guy with that size, 6'8", 315, plus he's got pedigree. His dad played in the NFL. Played 5 years in the NFL for the Saints before he, had to retire for an injury. So, he's got the pedigree, he's got the size, longtime starter, 3 years of starting experience. So the Bears fans are going to be happy that they add some beef. They add a tackle prospect, which is, what was needed to give some competition for Braxton Jones. Although, what are your thoughts on right versus left for Ozzy?
Yeah, so I definitely think it's a good question worth having. Honestly, I think left tackle might be a little bit better fit for Ozzy. That's not to say that he can't play as a right tackle. Obviously, I think he can, and he showed at Boston College that he can. I think he could translate there at the NFL level, but I like him best as a left tackle.
Okay.
I think that's where his movement skills really shine. I think that he's got the raw athleticism and the size needed to cover a significant amount of field against what's usually the better edge rusher of the two that you're going up against on the left side. It's not always the case, and I don't think there's a massive drop off like some people say between left tackle and right tackle, but I think it on the left side especially, it certainly helps to have that size and athleticism. So I project Azie as a left tackle. I know you mentioned Braxton Jones. Look, I'd hardly say that Ozzy's going to dethrone Braxton Jones this year. At least not right out of the gate. I think Braxton's a solid starter, and if Ozzy can become like the level of Braxton Jones, that'd be sweet. Obviously, they're different players, have different strengths, different weaknesses. Uh, but I think that his ability to play both sides gives him significant value as the swing tackle right out of the gate. Tremendous depth, I believe. He's someone I felt like if he ended up somewhere else, he probably would have had a better job of competing for a starting spot. But at the end of the day, I do think that he has the ability to eventually become a starter in the NFL at either tackle spot.
Well, you mentioned the swing tackle out of the gate. That's an important position. It's something that the question marks on this Bears roster. Going into the draft of who would fill that role exactly. Would you have Karana Magaji be the swing tackle, coming in with his first full camp. So there's more competition here, a little bit better pedigree than Amagaji, but now you've got some toolsy guys, some athletic guys, and we'll see what, the new coaching staff wants and what they can do with, more talent in the offensive line room than they had previously.
No, absolutely, and I think it really shows the just how important that Ryan Poles realizes that this depth up front is. And I know that looking, obviously, you're completely overhauling the interior offensive line this offseason. You're bringing in Joe Tooney, Jonah Jackson, and Drew Dalman, uh, keeping the same tackles as last year, but now you have Ozzy in addition to Karana Magaji. Uh, there's definitely it's definitely a deeper group, and I think that that's something where, I mean, sure, Ozzy's a rookie, he has his flaws. I can touch on real quick. I think his spatial awareness against blitzes needs work. There's sometimes where if he doesn't have a defender directly over him, he doesn't always know what he's doing. Uh, but there's definitely a lot to like with Ozzy, and I think from a long-term perspective, it's definitely a high ceiling. So I feel pretty good about the thought process of adding another tackle into the mix, especially with this being Braxton Jones's last year on his rookie contract. The way I see it is, if Braxton Jones doesn't re-sign, then you have Karan, you have Ozzy, who can compete for a starting spot. If you don't see enough out of either of them this coming year, sure, maybe you bring in another tackle in round one or try and sign someone in free agency. I don't know, but you have options here now. And worst case scenario, you keep Braxton Jones, or Ozzy doesn't become the starter. I mean, sweet, you have a pretty talented swing tackle. I think that's something the Bears haven't had very often. And I mean, sure, is would that be a little steep out of a late second round pick? I mean, sure, but I think Bears fans should know firsthand that you can't have too much offensive line depth, and you can certainly have too little. So from a pure positional perspective, from a pure positional focus, this is a pick I'm on board for. Like I said, a little bit too high for my liking, but I love the potential. I love the positional focus. So I'm on board with this pick.
Well, and obviously the Bears saw some value in being able to trade out of 41. We'll see what the complete picture looks like. They're basically gaining their own fourth round pick back, I believe is how it works out. And so, we'll see what the total package looks like after tomorrow. But right now, being able to trade back and still get a guy who, can compete for that swing tackle spot and maybe be the heir apparent, if he can show in his first year that he can take that on, because you're right. The Bears are going to have to make a decision on Braxton Jones. He's been a beautiful success story out of where he was drafted, but do you want to commit starting left tackle money to him, particularly given some of the injury issues and some of the ceiling issues that Braxton Jones has. And so this is, I think, a legitimate plan. And I know that a lot of people, are still upset about how bad Karan Amagaji looked when he did get in the game. I'm still upset that he got in the game at all, because that should not have been part of the plan for Karan Amagaji. But you can't dismiss that he does have a lot of tools and traits. And so let's see what happens here with the full off season and some legitimate competition now from another rookie.
Yeah, and I think something that's worth noting too is Karan played a little bit of guard at Yale. I think that's something we talked about in the pre-draft process and once he got selected by Chicago, but this offseason it hasn't been mentioned a ton where, maybe if Karan doesn't work out as a swing tackle or as a starting tackle option, you could still try him along the interior in theory. I do project him better, at least I did coming out of college, better as a tackle than a guard, but I mean, you have options, and best case scenario, both Azie and Karan end up hitting in the long term. I mean, will it happen? I don't know. I mean, that's two raw offensive tackle prospects, but both extremely talented players. I mean, it's a little cliche to be like, oh, they both come from smart colleges, but Yale and Boston College, those degrees aren't just something you can pick up off the street. Uh, so off of that alone, I feel like there's potential, but I mean, you look at it athletically, both of those guys have potential, and Azie, I think, is someone who's worth taking a shot on developmentally.
Well, and one final thing I'll say, it does in his notes. It says that he received offers from Northwestern and Yale, so that's kind of interesting. And I will mention that Ben Johnson in Detroit used a lot of sixth offensive linemen, throughout the year, and so we could see Ozzy play, some significant snaps because he could bring that athleticism in early in a limited package. So even if he doesn't take over as a starter, you could still see some limited action from him this year.
Yeah, I'm putting the over under on Ozzy Trapilo receiving touchdowns at 0.5, and I'm betting the over.
Okay,
With
all right,
he
here
could,
we go.
that could
You
be
heard it
your
here
Dan
first.
Skipper. That could be your Dan Skipper right there. So you never know.
Sure, exactly. All right, Jacob, we're gonna get out of here for this one. Do you want a quick grade before we take off?
Quick grade, you said?
Yeah. What do you grade this one?
C plus. C
Okay,
plus
C
is what
plus.
I'm going to give it. Some Bears fans aren't going to think that's super sexy, and I get it. But at the same time, it's tools, it's offensive line investment, it's a long-term play. I'm fine with it. I had him as a late third rounder, so to get him late second is a little bit of a reach in my opinion. But here I am. I'm splitting hairs. At the end of the day, I wanted trench investment. I got trench investment. I got a gifted athlete at offensive tackle. I'll take it.
Perfect. All right, Jacob. We'll see you soon.